Masterminds. You've heard of them, but do you really need to be a part of one? Let's talk about that. Welcome to The Friday Habit with Benjamin Manley and Mark Labriola II.
The Friday Habit is for creators, entrepreneurs, and agency owners looking for actionable ideas on how to grow their business and be more profitable.
We'll pull from our combined knowledge of over 20 years and interview thought leaders that will inspire you and give you the motivation you need to kick your business into high gear. Buckle up. It's Friday. Happy Friday.
It's Friday. I love it.
It is Friday. I mean, someone's probably listening to this on a Monday like, screw you guys. How dare you talk about Friday on a Monday?
That's right. Hey, it felt like Friday every day for the last couple weeks because we were both on vacation.
Yes, it did. I woke up every day like it was Friday. And every night like it was Friday too. Oh, man.
Did you have a good time with the family?
Yes, we took some vacation time and just enjoyed being together, being at the beach, did some fishing, some kayaking. We had a good time. Yeah, it was solid.
Yeah, we did some different beach vacation, but we also did a beach vacation. We did some rope climbing. My son and my daughter are way less scared of heights than I am. They're 8 and 10, but I decided to take them both on some big ropes courses to help overcome my fear of heights. So that was fun.
Help me, kids. I need therapy.
It actually wasn't too bad. I did it once before, so I'm a little more trusting of the zip lines than I used to be.
So is a ropes course like, you're not like swinging like Tarzan from like, is it like where it's like a maze of ropes that you kind of shakily walk over?
Yeah, and they have different obstacles. They have like a spider web obstacle and like monkey bars part. And there's just like some weird ones where there's like a kayak in midair that you have to like ferry.
You're like harnessed, right? You're like, you're it's like, watch out. There's alligators underneath, kids. If you fall to your death, I'm not coming for you.
Exactly. So no, that was fun though. So we had a good time.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, hey, speaking of good times, if you are having a good time listening to this podcast, why don't you go over to iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and subscribe to the show and leave a review. Maybe just say something that comes to mind. Like, this show is awesome. Thank you. We love hearing from you guys, and we'd like to read your reviews on the show. So, put those in, and we'll give you a shout out on the Friday Habit. But today, we're talking about masterminds.
Mastermind. What does it mean?
What does it mean? It's interesting because masterminds are something that I've kind of like heard about. You hear about, like, you need to get a part of be a part of a mastermind, or get a coach, get a mentor. Like, there's all these things that people throw at you as a business leader and a business owner to get involved with, and masterminds are one of those things. And so, I mean, the cool thing is that both Ben and I have been a part of masterminds, and we have a little bit of experience with this, and we kind of understand what it looks like, and really how it can benefit you.
For sure. Yeah, I did a quick little bit of research ahead of time because you probably heard about masterminds, and I had for a while, and I was like, what is that? I don't really quite understand it. And apparently it originally was kind of the term was coined by this guy, Napoleon Hill, in the 1920s in a book he wrote called The Law of Success. I think he's more well known for Think and Grow Rich as one of his more popular books that came out later. He's a little bit of a controversial figure for other reasons as well, but he kind of coined the term mastermind group as kind of describing a group of a few people who meet regularly and kind of help each other solve problems with, input and advice from each other and stuff like that. So it's something that obviously existed even before him, but he kind of coined the term mastermind group.
Nice. That's very interesting.
History lesson on the Friday Habit.
Thank you, Ben. I feel so smart. I feel like my mind has been mastered.
That's not what it means, but let's keep going.
It's been elevated.
One thing that might be useful to know about mastermind groups, if you're not familiar, is like what does it typically look like? So, most people recommend you have a group of like 4 to 8 people so that it's not too small where it's not dynamic, but it's not too large where not everyone has a chance to talk and kind of give input.
Yeah, it's like kind of like finding that sweet spot of there's enough people where you can share ideas and get a benefit from each other, but not so many people where it's like I really don't even feel like I get to communicate or ask questions or be a part of the conversation.
Right. And I think some people do mastermind groups just as part of life, to make their better as people, but sometimes most people I think do it as kind of as a business, and it's pretty common to join a group that is people similar to you in a similar industry or similar place in life or in business so that you can kind of share ideas and help each other out.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a good mix, right? Of people who maybe are a little bit behind where you are, and a few people who are a little bit ahead of where you are, so that kind of everybody kind of gets something from the group.
Exactly. Yeah. So a typical mastermind meeting, I mean, every group is different and there's so many different ways to do it. But the ones I've been a part of that have been useful, some of the questions that we ask, so we might go around, one at a time and answer a list of a couple questions as part of the mastermind. So one thing we would do is like answer the question, did you accomplish the goals that you set at the last meeting? So maybe we set some goals last meeting. Everybody kind of checks in and says like, hey, did you get those things done you said you were going to get done? Which is great. Builds in that accountability. Maybe they ask like, hey, what positive things happened in the last week since we last met or last month? What challenges did you face? What new thing did you learn? What do you want feedback on? Maybe there's something in your business that you've been thinking about and you want to bounce it off of this group. Or, at the end, maybe like what goals you want to accomplish by your next mastermind meeting. So those are like some things like a typical meeting might have when you're doing
and it's one of those things too, where it can be so beneficial. I think a lot of times as business owners and leaders, you feel alone. There was times where it's like, man, I just feel like nobody feels the pain that I feel, right? Like, when I have friends who want to go hang out and party or go to the beach all weekend or whatever, I'm thinking like, man, I got to work, or I'm thinking about my business constantly. Like You're talking about some TV show you watched and I'm thinking about, oh, I read this book about this new process, or I am, trying to teach myself how to be a better copywriter and all these things. And my friends look at me blankly like, copywriting? What does that mean?
Yeah. Or you're just excited about business and like, I'm like, all right, nerd.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is so boring right now. Like, can we talk about something everybody cares about? It is. It's fun to be part of a group where everybody's kind of nerding out about the same stuff. Like, ooh, let's systemize this process, or whatever it might be. So I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple of reasons I think that it's a good idea to start a mastermind group, or these could also apply if you are, joining a mastermind group, not necessarily starting it yourself. But first thing is, I think it's really helpful just to get an outside perspective. So sometimes, obviously, in your business, it's like, okay, I'm so close to this problem that I need somebody else to give me some advice. But the problem is, you could hire a business coach that costs a lot of money. And also, to me, it's hard to get people up to speed to understand context in your business, right? It's hard to just go to somebody and be like, hey, what should I do? And they don't know what your past goals are, all the things you've tried before. You don't have a history with that person, right? So having a mastermind group is awesome because you can get outside perspectives from people that kind of already know where you're at, Like they've already been following you. They kind of know, they know your personality by now, So it's really helpful to get that outside perspective.
Yeah. So outside perspective, number one.
And number two is just making learning automatic. Because basically, if you have a scheduled time where you're getting together with people, then you don't have to think about, what new book am I going to read? What new thing am I going to look for? You don't have to proactively go out there. It's like there's a set aside time where that stuff's going to kind of come to you because somebody is going to be recommending something they listened to or read or something they learned. So it kind of keeps you even accountable to keep learning.
Yeah. And I think that's huge. That's I think something that we all need. We need to have that accountability, and I think that's a huge part of a mastermind because you kind of feel that peer pressure. It's like, I know I got my call coming up, and I know they're going to ask me. I better be prepared.
Exactly, and that actually rolls into the third reason I think that you should join a mastermind, which is to achieve more goals. And I think for me, like just like you said, I feel that pressure of like, oh, last week or last month I said, hey, I'm going to finish writing that sales email campaign, or I'm going to launch my new website. Like, oh crap. Like if I show up, I'm going to be embarrassed. Like, and say like, oh, I didn't get to it because, I got distracted or whatever. So I think having that accountability, at least for me, is like a huge deal.
Well, yeah, it's like that peer pressure too, right? Like you don't want to be the loser accountability partner, right? Like you don't want to be the loser mastermind group member where it's like, dude, you're a freaking vampire. Like all you ever do is come to this group and drain it.
Don't be a vampire.
Don't be an emotional mastermind vampire. Contribute,
That could be tip number 5. We can just add that at the end.
Yeah, number 5.
So number 3 is achieve more goals by that accountability. And I do think that, along with the accountability aspect, I think that just having that pressure, like you said, is just really, really helpful. Mm-hmm. Number 4, you already kind of mentioned this, but building strong friendships is a huge deal because getting that understanding from people that are in the same situation as you can kind of build friendships that way. I mean, even you and me doing this podcast is kind of like doing a public mastermind group. We're just we're kind of like recording our conversation about like what we're trying to improve. And I think that because of that, we're making each other better and we're learning things from each other and from the people we interview. So it's kind of like a public mastermind group in that way. So we get to kind of build our friendship. When we wouldn't get to talk, you're in Denver, I'm all the way in Virginia, so
yeah.
When else would we have time to like hang out for, 30 minutes, an hour every week or, so
yeah,
I think it really helps build friendships. And one interesting thing is I talked to this guy the other day that does a mastermind group, and this kind of blew me away. He said they don't meet every month. They used to meet every week. And then they decided like, guys, we got to ramp this up. Once a week is not enough. And so they started meeting every single day.
No way.
Yeah, they met every day at the same time in the morning. I think it's like 7:15 they met, and they would meet for just 15 minutes every morning. And it was like their group. And now they're like the closest friends because they see each other every single day right before they get to work. And they say, hey, what are you going to work on today? I'm working on this. The next day, they're like, how'd it go? So it's like a really quick feedback loop for accountability and also staying in touch, I was like, that's really interesting. I feel like that would be a really big commitment, but I'm also kind of intrigued that it might be worth it,
Well, it's kind of like a gym partner, right? Like if you sign up a personal trainer and they're there at the gym waiting for you at 7:15 every morning, you're probably going to roll out of bed, and on time and get there because of that thought of like, crap, like someone's there waiting for me. So on a daily basis, it's almost like one of those things where, a lot of us commit to journaling and meditating and getting up early and writing out like what we want to achieve for the day. And sometimes you get to it and sometimes you don't. But geez, if you have that call every morning, it's like, I better get to those things that I said I was going to get to.
Exactly. I think, so I think it could be really cool. Kind of like rolling around in my head, like,
are we doing this? Are you and I doing a daily call?
Maybe we should. The Friday habit changes to the 7 a.m. habit, or I don't know. But I just feel like I'm intrigued by it. I think it could be really useful. But
no, that's awesome. So if someone wanted to start a mastermind group, where do we go, man? What's the steps?
So first thing I would do is just make a list of people to invite to your group. Just think through any contacts you have. Sometimes I'll literally open up my phone and just like scroll through my contacts because there might be somebody I didn't even think about, for something like this. So make a list of a few people. To me, if you're starting the group, I think you have a unique advantage that you could kind of, since you're organizing the group, you can kind of pick people that are above you or like beyond where you are, that you are like, hey, these people are kind of where I want to be with my business. And because you're kind of performing a service to everyone else and that you're getting these minds together and adding value by organizing it, maybe taking notes or whatever the administrative stuff is, then I think you probably should try to get people that are ahead of where you are because you're kind of offering that service to them. So I would make a list of people that you're like, man, I really want to be like these people. I really want to kind of achieve what they're achieving and start from there.
Nice. And then, don't be afraid to be rejected, right? Obviously, if you're punching above your weight, someone might be like, hey, I'm too busy. But hey, thanks for asking. And I actually know somebody else who might be interested in doing a mastermind. So contact them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I totally agree. And one thing I would recommend is once you kind of create this list is just to set up a meeting with these people. So, have a group meeting, group call. If you happen to be in the same town and you're not quarantining, you could maybe meet up for coffee or something. Basically just sit down and say like, hey, here's kind of what I want this group to be. Here's the advantages I think it could bring to all of us. Kind of give them that pitch and say like, hey, you could come up with a name if you want or whatever. Maybe that's a group discussion, but basically say, hey, here's the value I think it could add to everybody. here's a suggestion for the format of the meeting, but kind of include them in that discussion so they can be kind of founding members of it. Decide how often you're going to meet, decide how new members would be added. Does it need to be a unanimous vote to add new members? What's the cap? Just make a few ground rules, and then have everybody make some minimum commitment of, yes, I will commit to this for X number of meetings to start, and then we'll reevaluate. So they don't feel like, hey, I'm committing this for life, but hey, I could say, yes, I will definitely come to 4 meetings. And then at that point, we can all decide, do we want to continue doing this or not?
Yeah, because then that relieves a little bit of pressure of, am I going to do this? Do I want to do this? I'm interested in this, but I don't know if this is right for me. And so if you kind of, and I think too, if you set these ground rules in the beginning, it allows you to set expectations so nobody's feelings get hurt, or that everything is clear to say, hey, we agreed that we are going to do things this way, or we were going to take notes, or we were going to start every meeting by going over these things. So I think that kind of relieves any pressure as far as people saying, yes, they know what they're getting into.
Yep.
And then the responsibilities that are going to be involved. And it's not just some willy-nilly thing, because I think at that point, that's when it can becomes something where it's not productive at that point, right? Yep. If it's just willy-nilly. And so having guidelines of what it means to be a part of this, what we're trying to achieve, and these different rules, like how do we add new members, that just removes all that stuff from the table so you can have more effective groups.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And another thing that I think would really help when you're kind of setting this up is to just set a recurring event on your calendar. Kind of common sense, but if you can just set recurring event with a recurring video call attached to it, I think that just makes it simple to keep it automated. I recommend creating like a shared document for kind of keeping track of notes and goals and resources that are mentioned, so that there's like a central resource for everybody. So you could use something like Google Docs or Dropbox Paper, or whatever other tools you might want to use. In the Mastermind group I'm part of now, we also use Slack. So it's kind of nice that we have this group on Slack where between meetings, if we want to share a file or shoot somebody a message and ask them a question, or be like, hey, I think I might have a referral for you from this client, then we have like a nice little community of those people in one spot where we can kind of get in touch and talk about stuff even between meetings, which is nice.
Yeah, especially if it's a bigger group. On the larger side of things, than having that Slack channel that you can kind of go back and take a look at, or be interactive right then and there, post it just being through text message or something like that.
And then the last thing I'll just say is just, I think one of the keys to making this work is just staying organized and staying consistent. I mean, just like us doing this podcast, I think it's just kind of putting in the time, putting in the work over time to be consistent and showing up, I think is the biggest thing. So if you can stay dedicated, I think that will help it be more successful. And one thing that we decided to do in our group is that if you miss a certain number of meetings within a year, then you can basically be removed from the group, which I think is a good practice. Another thing you could do is like have maybe like a fine, like, hey, if you miss more than one meeting in a year, then each time you miss a meeting, it's $50 or something, and it goes into the group fund, and then the group can use it to do something cool at the end of the year.
Without you.
Yeah, and you don't get invited. No, just kidding.
I got ice cream cones for everybody except for you, Jim. You missed 2 meetings, but we bought it with your money.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, so something, where it just has some type of penalty to where people will take it a little more seriously. And I think we also did with ours was like an entry fee of like, hey, you pay X amount of money after your first meeting. Like if you decide you want to join, then you have a joining fee, which I think we said would be returned to you like as a deposit when you leave. So I think what we decided to do was to make it so that you just make a donation to your favorite charity as like your entry fee. And then that way there's some little small fence to jump over. So make sure everybody's taking it seriously to get started. So yeah, those are the things I'd recommend to get started.
I think that's awesome. So to recap, the benefits of it are 1, to get an outside perspective, 2, make learning automatic, 3, it allows you to achieve more goals because you're having that accountability. And then number 4 really is building strong friendships. You got a mutual understanding, people who meet with you on a consistent basis, understand some of your pain points and difficulties, and it allows them to help you with guidance and advice. And through that, you connect with somebody on a deep level and make good friendships. And I think that's really one of the biggest benefits, right? Is when you can make friends who are like-minded, as an entrepreneur is such a huge win. I think you and I think that's one is why we connected all those years ago, was because we kind of were in a similar life space, had similar interests. And then we're kind of doing things in a way that was like, hey, why don't we become friends? And then we can talk about all these pain points and stuff. So we kind of have an ongoing mastermind. It's an official mastermind.
Mastermind Junior.
That's right. A mini mastermind.
Yeah.
So what's the action item this week?
So yeah, if you were to do one thing to kind of take a step in this direction, I would recommend just making a list of people to invite to a mastermind. I would consider people either in your industry or with similar size businesses, or maybe a little bit ahead of you, with some of the skills and knowledge that you'd like to learn. And then just set up a group call with those people, send them an email, say, hey, would you be willing to talk about this? Get on a group call and then just pitch your idea to them and then see if they're willing to join you.
Fantastic. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in today, whenever that day is. If you want to know more about The Friday Habit, head over to thefridayhabit.com. There you can find show notes for this episode. You can also find links to our websites and ways to get in touch. At the bottom of the page, you can download our guide to the Friday Habit system, which will show you how to set aside one full day each week dedicated to working on your business instead of in your business.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please go to thefridayhabit.com/review. That will shoot you over to Apple Podcasts. If you scroll down, you'll see the reviews there, and we'd love it if you leave us a star rating and a quick review.
Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, remember to live every day like it's Friday.